You are listening to the 5 Squared Podcast, the podcast where we bring you tips for your business and your life. Our goal is to leave you smarter with ideas, wisdom, tools, and entertained. The 5 Squared Podcast is produced weekly for your enrichment. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow me on Twitter at 5 Squared and Facebook. All the links are in the show notes. Now let's get started with your host, business consultant, executive coach, and founder of 5 Squared, Tim Fives.
Welcome back to the 5 Squared Podcast with your host, Tim Fives, and my very special guest who's already laughing at me. My good friend, colleague, mentee, I guess. I don't know. Mentee. Say your last name because I know I'm going to butcher it. Miss Lori.
Deer off.
Deer off.
Get the deer off the
Get the deer off the road. I love how you put that. So thanks for being with me today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I know. It's good after several bottles of Jameson. But anyway, that's for another story. So tell us a little bit about your company, what you're doing, and I want everybody to get out of this what your big event coming up on the September 11th is.
Yes, okay. My company is OpenDoor Training and Development, and I specialize in dementia education. And this September 11th, Tuesday, we are having our first fall dementia workshop at the Pennsylvania College of Health Sciences. And I'm very excited because we have over 100 people who are going to be joining us. We have
how many?
Over 100.
I love it.
People.
Let that sink in. 100 over
100 people.
Yeah, and it is on a Tuesday, not a Saturday like I was thinking. So
Correct.
That's good.
Yes, Tuesday. It's an 8 to 4:30 day. And I went shopping for the best dementia educators in the area. And I have secured some wonderful speakers with some wonderful subjects to share about dementia. And it's focusing on communication.
And what are some of the subjects? And not to put you on the spot, but
I remember them. We have Jim Day, who is a certified validation teacher, who's going to be talking about and illustrating challenging behaviors and using validation to help people who have challenges. And I've asked him to spend some time role-playing so that we can actually see, not just hear about it or learn what the techniques are, but to actually hands-on practice.
So it's interactive.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. And who else do you have speaking?
I have Candy Yingling coming from the Alzheimer's Association, and she is going to focus on some current research and technology updates every year. The Alzheimer's Association has their international association meeting. This year it was in Chicago in July. And at that session, they talk about all the latest updates. So she is going to give us the report on what was covered at this past July's event, which was held in Chicago. So we'll be learning more about upcoming things with research and technology for dementia care. We also have Jennifer Holcomb, who is a certified dementia practitioner. She works with Cross Keys Village in Oxford, New Oxford.
Yeah.
And she is their dementia support specialist there. So I've heard some wonderful things about her presentations. She was actually the first person referred to me as a very dynamic dementia educator. She's going to be talking about how to have conversations with people who have dementia, but also with families who are dealing with the diagnosis. So
who's an ideal person to attend?
Anybody who is a professional caregiver. So that would be long-term care administrators, nursing home administrators, personal care administrators. I also have quite a lot of nurses who are coming. We have social workers, lots of activities people, anybody who works with individuals who are dealing with a dementia diagnosis. Those are most of the 100 plus people that I have coming.
And when did you start the journey? Like, when did it come to you to say, like, hey, I want to do a big event?
Well, my fabulous coach asked me what kind of goals I had. He's
amazing.
He is amazing. That was probably last November or December. And I wasn't aware that there were any dementia conferences happening in the Lancaster area, which is where we're hosting it. And that's a shame because there's such a need. Lancaster is the number 2 county in the state for long-term care communities.
Is it really?
It is.
Huh. What's the number one?
Philadelphia.
Oh, makes sense.
So we need some help, and one of the reasons that I came into the business in the first place is the fact that we could do so much better than what we're doing on dementia education. It's really not as complicated as people seem to make it. It's just a matter of taking yourself outside of all of the things that you used to know when it comes to communicating with people and having a better understanding of what you're working with. And you can't rely on old behaviors and old assumptions when you're interacting with a person who has dementia, because they don't hold.
Mm-hmm. So what's for this event coming up? What's the thing that excites you the most about it?
I think I'm excited about getting so many people together who are so interested in dementia education. And I have told the presenters that it's really important that people leave that session with something that they can take back to their team, something that they can share and start using right away. It's not just about, one of the sessions that I'm talking about is frontotemporal dementia.
Say that slowly.
One of the sessions that I am talking about is called frontotemporal dementia. About 10% of people who have a dementia-related illness suffer from frontotemporal dementia, or FTD. It's a really complicated...
FTD, not the flower shop.
Correct.
Got
not
it.
the flower
All
shop.
right.
FTD is a really complicated kind of dementia, and there are lots of different subtypes of FTD. But I'm not spending a lot of time on that, because it's... Knowing information is great, but if you don't know how to use it to give care, that's not what this conference is about. This conference is about getting something that is going to be useful that you can start using to make a difference in the lives of people living with dementia.
Good. So you're not going to kill people with, here's some handouts and PowerPoints and just sit here and take notes.
Right.
I love the role-playing aspect of that and what you're doing. So what were some of the barriers and challenges you had getting this thing set up, getting it running?
Well, I think probably when we first started working together in November, it was I didn't know what I didn't know. I'm not a marketer. I'm a trainer. I'm an HR person. So my focus was not on how to get people into a room. My focus was, once they're in the room, how to get them the information. And to be honest, I'm very good at that part.
Yeah, I would agree.
But I when we first started working together, I didn't know how to market an event, what steps to put together to plan it. So some of the barriers I needed to overcome were definitely, what makes people want to come to this kind of an event, and then to sort of break those pieces down. And I like checklists, so time-wise, it was helpful to have someone to show me, okay, from this time to this time, these 2 months you need to focus on these things. These 2 months, these are the things you need to be focusing on. So helping me to break it down into smaller steps, and to sort of see the big picture, that I don't have to do everything right away.
And what do you think worked the best for you to get people in the room?
Probably persistence more than anything. It was coming at things from lots of different angles. Making phone calls, sending postcards, sending faxes, talking about it at different events that I held through the year.
Yeah. I think it was hysterical when we first started talking about your business, and you're like, how do you get people in the room? I send faxes, and I laughed, and I'm like, really? People still have fax machines. And it's a really important point, because for your business, that works.
Correct.
Because that demographic still uses faxes.
Right. Long-term care facilities get a lot of information from doctors' offices by way of faxes. So I know people are still using them. And
you still do that for your smaller sessions when you're going out as well.
Right.
I find that fascinating. It was kind of blew my mind. I'm like, oh, maybe I should start sending faxes.
Well, early on in my business, I decided I didn't need a fax machine or a fax number, because no one ever uses that. And then once I started to use it, because someone told me I had to, I was equally amazed. But if it works, keep doing it.
So have you created any new habits over the past 6 months or so on the general operation of your business?
Yes, absolutely. Again, pushed forward by my wonderful coach.
He's
One of the
amazing.
things that I do is plan my week ahead of time with time. I don't generally like to be constricted by a real set schedule. I don't work well with those kinds of parameters. I like to be a little bit free and easy. But I sort of have built in things that will give me the flexibility. So if I don't, to write a session, I need to be in my creative mode. And there are just certain times of day that I'm not in that mode. And so I flip things around. So I'll have a basic schedule for the week. But when I get to the point where I'm supposed to be writing a program and I'm not in that space, that I just shift the blocks around and make it work. I put it someplace else.
Right.
And move some of the monotonous things in there. Like there are times when, I know this is going to shock and amaze you, but there are times when I just would rather be making phone calls.
Yeah.
And shocking and amazing because I really started off with hating to make phone calls.
Really? Did you hate to make phone calls?
I really
and what was
hated to.
the transition where you're like, I like to make phone calls?
I think it's because in my mind, I felt like I was bothering people by trying to sell them something. But the more people that I talked to, the more excited people were to hear the fact that, hey, somebody out there is doing dementia education and I need some of that.
Right.
So the fact that even though you could say it until you were blue, when people who were my customers were saying, you know, you're offering a service that I can't get anywhere else, that really made a difference.
Well, it changes it from selling to adding value to the, do you need this? You need this, so here's the service that I provide, and it's no longer a cold call sales. It's, let me tell you about the service that you need, and you can choose to buy it or not.
Right. Unfortunately, I do not learn best by having someone tell me something. I learn better by, which is probably not something that you want to have a coach hear from you, but I learn better by actually experiencing it and finding out, you know, hey, you know what, that does work.
Well, I think a lot of people are like that, and it's frustrating when you get people who are like, "Here's what you need to do," and like, "I won't do it." And what I really appreciate about working with you is you're like, "I don't know if I agree with this, Tim. I don't know if this is, but I'll do it." And at least having the open mind to figure out, like, oh crap, this is actually working.
Right. You know, I do love the fact when you tell me to do something and I say those things like, all right, I don't agree, but I'll try it. And then they don't work out. I'm like, yeah, that didn't work. But unfortunately, that's not usually what happens. Usually when you tell me to do something and I do it, I either end up really liking it or it really ends up doing positive things for the business. So
yeah, I was trying to think of one thing that we discussed doing that didn't work.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of that right now.
But we're in a really good mindset of focusing on what is working. And one of the paradigms is those things that don't work is to stop doing them immediately. Like if it's not working, and there's two parts to that. One, you don't want to do it, so you're not emotionally enthralled in doing that and upbeat, which then they don't work. But really focusing on your strengths of saying like, hey, yeah, if I make these phone calls with this tone and with this intention, they go really well.
Right. And part of that, too, was the fact that I sat on the other side of that desk for a long time. I was the administrator who was getting those random phone calls of people that, you know, were trying to sell me books or, you know, sell me ad space or things that I really didn't need or want and didn't have time for those phone calls. So in my mind, before I started making phone calls, I was just focused on all those irritating people that I didn't have time for, who thought that whatever they had to say to me was really important.
Yeah. And that's always a big thing when we're selling, and this is for everybody that's listening. It's not what you do or what you care about. It's what your customers want or need or care about.
Right.
And you've made that transition brilliantly. And you got your focus in on it. It's good. I'm getting it.
Thank you.
So what else throughout this journey have you learned about yourself?
That's a very deep question, Coach Tim. Let me think. What have I learned about myself? I think probably more than anything else is that I can do anything. I'm a rock star.
Yeah, I agree. I concur, Doctor.
No, I it's something that I wanted to do. We talked last year about what do you want to do, and this is something I said I wanted to do, and here we are, mere minutes away from making it all happen, and I'm so excited and I'm so grateful. and just feel very blessed to be here.
Now, knowing you, you've been very confident the entire time, like you're going to hit the goal of 100 people in that room. Was there ever a time? I have to ask this: was there ever a time where you're like, I don't know if I'm going to hit the 100?
No. I will tell you though, I will not be leaving today without my $1 bill from you. In case you weren't aware.
Yeah, no, I know. Okay.
Would you like to share that story, or would you like me to share?
Yeah, no, go ahead, please do.
A few weeks ago, Coach Tim and I had our weekly meeting, and he said, "Well, even if you don't get to 100," and honestly, whatever he said after that, I didn't hear. And I jumped in and said, "No, I'm going to get to 100." And he said, "Well, just in case you don't get to 100."
I'm not sure that's the words I use, but keep going.
It's still been a very positive experience.
Thank you so much for listening to the show.
Just in case you don't get to 100.
Yeah.
You said it's still going to have been a very positive experience. You have more people in your group,
sphere.
My sphere, than you had before. And, it crossed my mind that you thought I wouldn't get 100 people.
Well, no, that was not it.
But I knew I would get 100 people because I almost know 100 people who should be in that room.
Well, and the one thing that I was focusing on was just the phenomenal success that you had at that point. I think you were like at 70 or 80 people. So, and not to beat ourselves up over being too disappointed that you don't hit that specific of a goal. And you're like, whatever, Fives, this is happening. And I'm like, all right. And then you're like, you're going to give me $1 when I hit it. So I do owe you that $1, which should be on my desk. So we'll get that.
I'm not leaving here without it.
So. All right.
But no, I felt like, and again, having sat on the other side of that desk, there were a couple of reasons I would go. One is CEUs. Everybody needs them. And so I knew once I got CEU approval, it would be a double bonus for people. Not only do you get that dementia education, but you also get CEUs.
And what's a CEU?
Continuing ed credit,
okay.
Which nursing home administrators and personal care administrators and nurses and social workers all need to have. Certain number every year. So I knew if I had CEUs, and also people wait a little bit longer in healthcare because you never know what's going to happen. So depending on, if you have a DON position open, I probably won't be able to leave the building on September 11th if I have no nurse manager. So I knew I would get more numbers closer to the date, but the sign-up deadline is September the 4th. And so whoever is in at that point, my husband asked me, are you going to have people walk in and hand you a check? And I said, absolutely not. I can't do that.
Yeah.
But, if someone walks in and hands me a check, I guess I will have to see how I feel at that moment.
Yes. Money's green. It burns the same. Well, this is fantastic. I mean, I just wanted to share your success with everybody and get the message out over this weekend on your fantastic event coming up on the September 11th, 2018. And, what are you planning for next year? We started to talk about a little bit about that today,
right?
But what's on your mind? Like, if I were to ask you right now, which I just did, what do you want out of 2019?
I definitely will be doing another fall dementia workshop. As I have worked throughout the state this year, I have made some contacts with people in different locations, Western Pennsylvania, the Pittsburgh area, the Erie area, Johnstown. So I am planning to do some 2-day seminars in different locations throughout the state, but I definitely want to host the fall dementia workshop again next year in Lancaster, and possibly a second session somewhere else in the state.
Oh, moving from 1 to 2. Very good. I like it. Expansion.
Or more.
Well, I just want to thank you for taking the time today to chat about that.
It's been my pleasure.
You just won your $1.
No, I went to Chick-fil-A today, so I've been saying it's my pleasure since I've been there.
Why? Is that their tagline?
Yes.
Oh, I get it. I was not aware that was their tagline.
Well, it's actually one of the things that I train people about for customer service training is the Chick-fil-A experience. So
yeah, I'm a little disappointed I didn't get Chick-fil-A today.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right. We'll let it go. Thank you very much, Lori. Have a wonderful day, everybody. And check out our next episode. We'll put links to the event and more about Lori in the show notes for everybody. And thanks very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the show with your host, Tim Fives. We hope you will pass along our web address, fivesquared.com, to your friends and colleagues. Be sure to check out our archives section on our website for previous podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at 5Squared or follow us on Facebook. This has been a 5 Squared production. Join us next time for another edition of the 5 Squared Podcast.